Joel Embiid was touted as one of the greatest and skilled big man prospects we've ever seen since Hakeem Olajuwon. This is a guy who already had a polished post game as well as a defensive monster in quickness and athleticism that is equivalent to Hakeem, being a top 3 pick in the highly anticipated 2014 draft that consisted of two first picks in Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker, who were both viewed as generational talents in their own right. And quite frankly, Embiid ended up being better than both of them combined. Embiid will quickly become one of the best centers in the league in just his first healthy season because, mind you, Embiid have missed 2 full seasons due to a stress fracture in his foot, something that will be a main theme to his career. Furthermore, Joel Embiid will have a great first season in the NBA, which averages of 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and shot 47, 37, 78 shooting splits, and would have been the clear rookie of the year hadn't he didn't miss so many games due to a torn meniscus. Before the injury, Joel Embiid already had a polished inside and out game, a great post game, and also can space the floor as a center and play exceptional defense. He was the prototypical modern day center while having one of the best post games in the league in just his first year playing, and that led to so much hype for the Sixers' future. The very next year, there was a new guy on the block, and that was Ben Simmons. Simmons was the first overall pick in the 16 draft, and he was compared to LeBron himself. This is a guy who is 6'10", 230-pound point forward, and had exceptional court vision and ball handling, and paired that with his athleticism. If the guy were to develop a consistent jumper, then one day he would have been in the discussion as the best player in the NBA. That is the amount of hype this guy was getting coming out of college. And it was looking like it was going to be the case, especially what he did in his rookie year. Now, going back to Embiid, he will take another leap in his game. He will bump his numbers from 20 to 23 a game while grabbing 11 rebounds and 3 assists on 48% from the field. And although he shot way worse from 3, shooting 31% because he was taking too many unadvised shots, and 77% from the charity stripe. And he was actually second in DPOY voting behind Rudy Gobert, and also made his first All-Star appearance. For Ben Simmons, the 18th season was actually his rookie year after fracturing his metatarsal during training camp back in 2016. That season, he was the Rookie of the Year with a 15-8-8 season performance and with one of the better supporting casts in the league. The 76ers will make the playoffs for the first time since 2012 and actually won a playoff series against Miami. Joel Embiid during the postseason missed a couple of games due to an orbital fracture, but once he came back, he was in minutes restriction and averaged 19 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks per game, and had 90 plus minus against Miami. Per 36 minutes, he was basically averaging similarly to his regular season averages, and the only difference is him averaging 4 blocks. And because of his performance, the Sixers went ahead and gentlemen swept the Miami Heat, but they will eventually got gentlemen swept themselves against the Celtics. Despite Joel Embiid averaging similar stat lines, he struggled with efficiency, particularly how well Al Horford defended him and forcing turnovers, especially late in the game. But even with the second round exit, Embiid proved why he is a superstar in the making, but frequent injuries were big signs to come later in his career. In the 2019 season, the Sixers will be a top 3 seed again. Joel Embiid will establish himself as the best center in the league after averaging 28 points, leading the league in rebounds with 11, 4 assists, while shooting 48, 30, and 80 splits for the regular season. He made his second All-NBA selection and All-Defensive selection and was top 10 in MVP voting. In the same year, they have made blockbuster moves such as trading for Tobias Harris, who was having the best season of his career with the Clips, along with trading for Jimmy Butler. Ben Simmons, although he didn't make a large enough leap, but he was still very effective as an all-around point forward and a great defender. The Sixers were now looked as the team to beat in the Eastern Conference after the trade deadline. Embiid shined through in the first round against the Nets, despite him dealing with knee tendonitis and was on a minutes restriction. Despite that, in just 25 minutes played, he still averaged 25 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks per game. The Sixers gentlemen swept the Nets, but going into the second round, they were really up to a big challenge as they faced against the Raptors, the same team that went on and won the championship in 2019 in the second round, and this is with them acquiring Kawhi Leonard, who was a top 3 player in the league at this point. It was a grueling 7-game series, and the series is where Joel Embiid really struggled and people really got on his ass in the media about his performance. But people failed to realize that he was playing through one leg basically due to tendonitis on his other leg and a viral infection, so that obviously played a part to his poor play. While he did struggle mightily from shooting the basketball and at times settled with tough mid-range shots instead of bodying his opponents in the post, it looked passive at times, especially against the best defense in the NBA in Toronto. Hell, Jimmy Butler took over as the main offensive option on the team. Overall, Embiid's inconsistency was one of the reasons that the Sixers lost that series, despite them taking the Raptors to 7 games and took a Kawhi crazy game-winning shot to end this series. Now, going into the 2019 offseason, there was really big questions regarding the players entering free agency, such as Jimmy Butler. Butler really loved Philly, and Embiid publicly vows for Butler to stay. But the front office never discussed any contract negotiations with Butler, and eventually they let him walk in free agency, eventually signing with the Heat. JJ Redick, who has been an important piece for the Sixers, particularly on perimeter spacing, they let him walk as well. The front office later gave Tobias Harris a max deal worth over $180 million, 5 years, and signed Al Horford on a max deal as well too. That, along with Ben Simmons not developing a jump shot still, the Sixers cannot space the floor whatsoever, and that led to Embiid having to take so many tougher shots on the perimeter. That, along with the mismanagement of the Sixers medical staff, having Embiid to continue to push through on knee and shoulder issues throughout the 2020 season, while also Embiid having conditioning issues throughout the season. It was just a disastrous season for the Sixers in regards to spacing, injuries, and so on and so forth. The Sixers, luckily, will make the 6th seed despite all the turmoil that year, but they will get swept against, you guessed it, the Celtics. Ben Simmons will miss the whole playoffs due to injuries, and Embiid, despite him averaging 30 and 12 per game, his efficiency drops every time, and he struggled with turnovers, averaging 4 per game. And going into the 2020 COVID offseason, the Sixers decided to make changes. They brought in Daryl Morey from the Rockets as GM. They fired Brett Brown, who was underwhelming as a coach, but they brought in a more underwhelming coach than Doc Rivers. Not only that, they salary dumped Al Horford's contract to OKC and brought in Seth Curry and Danny Green to add more spacing on the roster. Because of the key acquisitions they made in that offseason, the Sixers in 21 had the best record in the Eastern Conference, and Joel Embiid proved why he is a superstar in this league and everything we have hyped him up about. Embiid averaged 29, 11, and 3 on 51, 37, and 86 shooting splits. Not only this is the most efficient season of his career, but he almost had a 50, 40, 90 season as a center. He was second in MVP voting and made another All-NBA and All-Defense teams, and the Sixers had the second best defense in the league behind the Jazz. They have one of the makings of a championship roster, but they lost in embarrassing fashion to the Hawks in the second round. The very next year, Ben Simmons decided he doesn't want to be in Philly no more and stopped trying in practice because he never made the effort to get better, and that led the Sixers trading him to the Nets in exchange for James Harden in the trade deadline. Everyone looked at this Harden and Embiid new duo and said, oh man, this will be the most dominant 1-2 punch since Shaq and Kobe. Well, it didn't in their 2 years together. The Sixers will continue to fail to make it out of the second round, including getting owned by Butler and the Heat, despite Joel Embiid having one of the most dominant regular seasons in NBA history, and even won MVP in 23. But injuries and shortcomings, especially what Embiid did in the second round against the Boston Celtics in 23, and not just that, but for the whole playoffs where he dropped significantly from 33 a game in the regular season to just 23 per game, while on nearly 10% less efficiency. And that run specifically really held us back from calling Embiid a true number one option on a championship team. Now, going into the 23 offseason, Harden had a rift between him and Daryl Morey and forced his way out of Philly and got traded to the Clippers. Doc Rivers got fired, and Nick Nurse, who recently won a championship with Toronto, became the new head coach. Fast forward, without Harden, the Sixers were still a top 5 seed in the East. Embiid was looking like he could go back-to-back in MVPs with averages of 35 per game, along with 11 rebounds and 6 assists on great efficiency. But yet again, the injuries continue to pile up for this man. Yet again, going to February of last year. The Sixers came down to the 7th seed after having a below 500 record in the last remaining games of the regular season. Going into that postseason, Joel Embiid was the one that actually stepped up against the Knicks, especially going for 50 on 13 of 19 shooting in Game 3. But of course, he dealt with Bell's palsy. He shot poorly, around 36 to 41% from the field in 5 games. And that Game 3 performance was the only time he shot above the field. But other than that, Embiid simply did not have the firepower. Despite Tyrese Maxey going off in that series, aside from Maxey and Embiid, Kelly Oubre was the only one that averaged double-digit points in that series, and that wasn't cutting it. And then we get to last season, where his knee problems are still bothering him to this day. He only played 19 games of that year, and now news came out that he probably won't be able to play back-to-back games anymore. And that the 3-year, near $200 million deal contract that he signed a couple seasons back. And plus, they signed PG on a 4-year, $220 million deal. And he was in and out in lineups and just wasn't the same when he played. And now they have the young guys that the front office will eventually pivot to based on what we've seen in that season. Mind you, they drafted another guy in VJ Eshcom as the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft, who has upside and can be a potential star in the league. And they still have Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain on the helm. This is a good indicator that this era of the process is coming to an end. Embiid is in his 30s, and with an injury history so vast that teams will not even bother trading for him. And also, you have to match his contract, and with him having another year in his contract and the next with a player option, it is extremely hard to move Embiid's contract along with PG's contract in order for the Sixers to do a full-on reset, because Embiid is too injury prone to play over 60 games at this point of his career and frequently injured in the playoffs consistently, rendering him to being unreliable. With this being the case, I think we really need to look at Embiid's career as a whole. We all agreed that Embiid, especially what he did from 18 to 23, he was a once-of-a-generation type center. This is a guy who can practically do it all at an elite level, which is scoring particularly on the mid-range, post, free throws, and even became a really good three-point shooting big man later in his career. But durability was never on his side, especially in the postseason, where he never played in a postseason mostly healthy, and his playoff shortcomings. And actually, I will go as far as say that Embiid is considered one of the worst playoff performers in NBA history. And also, he never made a conference finals appearance. And that's the reason why his playoff resume will always have a massive asterisk in his legacy. But not everything was his fault. The front office failed in a way too. There was no continuity in the front office. Embiid had 4 GMs within 6 years. They let Jimmy Butler walk in free agency, and we all know how it turned out. They traded Mikal Bridges on draft night for Zaire Smith, who was a bust at this point. They signed both Tobias Harris and Al Horford to max deals, which makes no sense. There was no consistent shooting around Embiid nor playmaking. And then add on the coaching carousel with Brett Brown, not a championship level coach, and of course Doc Rivers. And for Nick Nurse, he's by far the best coach that Embiid had, but still Embiid was just worn down at this point. And worst of all, Ben Simmons never developed a jumper, never put in the effort towards being great, and also mentally collapsed every time in the playoffs, and so did Harden. And the medical staff also failed him too. They never properly rested Embiid, delayed surgeries, and lacked timely interventions. That led to Embiid frequently having injuries to the point that he never played over 70 games in the regular season. And so Joel Embiid's career is a cautionary tale of a transcendent talent hobbled not only by his body, but a franchise unable to build around him or keep him healthy. His story is one of immense potential, squandered opportunities, and the harsh reality that even the greatest players need more than skill to become legends. And that's the video. Let me know about y'all's thoughts on this very long video. Do y'all think that Embiid's career is finished? Like I said, let me know, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more NBA and NFL content, and turn on post notifications, and that is all. Stay litty. This is the A-Man Show. Sign out.